Shocking true story. The dark world of a powerful witch and a haunting children's curse. In the small town of Hollow Creek, whispers floated in the air like ghosts among the rustling leaves. It was a place where shadows stretched longer than the sun hid behind crooked branches, and rumors of a witch danced on the tongues of the terrified townsfolk. The old stone mansion at the end of Willow Lane sat silent, its windows clouded with dust and secrets. They said the witch ruled this cursed land, her power so terrible that even the bravest would tremble at her name. Every time a child went missing, the air crackled with anxiety, and parents searched with desperation painted on their faces. Yet they knew. Deep down they believed the stories, the tales of a woman wrapped in darkness, who snatched children away into the night, never to be seen again. The locals claimed to hear her cackling laughter echoing through the trees. Some even swore they'd glimpsed her silhouette, a dark figure flitting between the branches, her shadow disturbing the peace of lingering dusk. One chilly October night, an unsettling fog crept through Hollow Creek. It wrapped around homes like icy fingers. Children gathered for Halloween, unaware of the lurking terror. Out of nowhere, a rustling burst from the bushes, and a child's scream sliced through the air, pulling everyone's heartstrings tight with fear. They turned towards the sound, eyes wide and bodies tense, waiting for something, anything to break the thickening silence. As the noise faded, a chill settled deep in their bones. No one dared to check the shrine at the edge of town, where the locals left offerings to appease the witch, the withered flowers, broken toys, and half-melted candles bearing silent testament to their dread. And then there was the legend of the curse, the belief that any child taken would return, but twisted and tortured, bearing the mark of the witch on their souls. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As night descended, an eerie stillness enveloped Hollow Creek. The children huddled closer, hearing murmurs of the past, each one recalling a lost friend, a tragedy that had left its mark. Tension hung thick, and parents told stories of a boy who had gone missing just last Halloween. With bated breath, they shared how he had stumbled back days later, his eyes hollow, his mind shattered. What had happened in those dark hours? What curse had been woven around him? The night crept on, shadows flickering like restless spirits, and whispers of the witch grew louder, tugging at the corners of every fearful heart. Everyone knew the truth. Something supernatural was brewing in Hollow Creek, and their very existence hinged on uncovering the secrets of the dark world that beckoned just beyond the veil of reality. As the wind howled through the trees, a ghostly figure flashed in the distance, and the children gasped. The witch was nearer than ever before, and the night was just beginning. The fog thickened, swirling around like a living entity, suffocating the laughter that once filled the air. The carnival atmosphere morphed into something grotesque, as the children's playful shrieks turned to petrified gasps. Their wide eyes darted to the edges of the darkened street, where shadows danced in a rhythm that chilled their bones. Something in the air was different now, a tremor of fear sweetened with the scent of dread. Parents grappled for the hands of their kids, pulling them tightly against their sides. Pockets of laughter scattered away, leaving an unsettling quiet that reigned like a heavy crown. Every villager's gaze flickered to the old stone mansion, its dark silhouette outlined by the moon. They knew deep down that the stories weren't just tales spun to frighten the young. The witch was real. A boy named Tommy, full of brave defiance, dared move closer to the bushes where the scream had echoed from. It was as if the shadows beckoned him forward, wrapping around him like a serpentine embrace. "I'll check it out," he yelled, voice cracking with bravado, though his fingers trembled like leaves in the wind. His friends gasped, gripping his sleeves tighter, fear prickling at their skin. "Don't, Tommy," shouted Sarah, her voice a mixture of uncertainty and fear. "We can't go there. What if the witch?" But Tommy was already stepping into the darkness. No one noticed at first that the air grew heavier with each step he took. Soon, his small figure was swallowed by the shadows. Only the murmur of his heartbeat could be felt among the group. Minutes stretched painfully long, The remaining children frozen like statues, hearts pounding like war drums. Then came the sound, a crackle of twigs, a rustle of leaves, and just above a whisper, the unmistakable cackle that sent chills racing down their spines. It was her laughter. The witch was close. Suddenly a sharp scream shattered the silence, pulling the adults from their hushed conversation. The crowd surged forward, and panic swept through them like wildfire. "Tommy!" they cried, voices laced with horror, as parents and friends drifted towards the darkened shadow of the bushes, scanning frantically for any sign of the boy. As they reached his last known position, they stumbled on something strange, a toy dangling from a low branch. A forgotten relic, it swung slowly, as if moved by unseen hands. Someone recognized it. "That is Tommy's," they gasped. A chilling realization washed over them like a thick tide. He was gone. The group drew together, the energy crackling with fear, as the adults circled up protectively around the remaining children. They clutched at each other, faces pale and trembling. They had some knowledge of the witch, but none had ever expected to encounter her fury like this. The whisper surged again, haunting tales of the town's secrets surfacing in the panicked minds, the curse, the dark pact, and the children who left never to return whole. Eyes darted back to the mansion, the source of so much pain, and for the first time bravery flickered, not as defiance, but as a desperate need for survival. "Let us go find him," Sarah blurted out. The words hung in the air, heavy and full of fear. But before they could respond, a silhouette appeared amidst the fog, parting it like curtains drawn back from a darkened stage. The figure stepped forward into the dim light, and gasps echoed once more. It was Tommy. But the flicker in his eyes was no longer his own. He stood there, a ghost of the boy they once knew. "Help me," he whispered, his voice hollow, sharpening the air around them. But before they could rush to him, he turned, vanishing into the inky shadows, leaving only a bitter taste of despair in his wake. A knot of ice coiled tightly in their stomachs. The realization dawned heavy and dark, something more sinister than they'd ever feared lurked at the edge of their reality. The witch had taken Tommy, and now she had drawn them into her shadowy world. What would they sacrifice to pull him back from the brink, and what price might they pay if they failed? As the fog closed in around them, the night grew even darker. "Wait!" Sarah shouted, her heart racing like a caged bird. Tommy had disappeared into the dark, but something kept pulling her towards that shadowy maw, where fear intermingled with a desperate hope. "We can't just leave him." But what could they do? The adults exchanged worried glances, their frowns deepening. He is not our Tommy anymore," one mother murmured, tears streaming. "Listen to him. That sounds like the witch's voice." A chill ran down their spines, pulling at the threads of their courage. The wizened tales danced in their heads. The witch was known to manipulate, to twist a child's spirit into something unrecognizable. Was it already too late? No. Sarah stomped her foot, pushing back against despair. "We can't just abandon him. Tommy needs us." Her resolve ignited an ember of bravery in the others, warming their frightened hearts. "Let us go together," said a boy named Lucas, bravely intertwining his fingers with Sarah's. As the rest nodded, their group felt a small flicker of unity. They stepped forward into the fog, body and spirit entwined. With each step, the earth seemed to pulse beneath them, a heartbeat echoing in the dark. Strange rustlings accompanied their movement, whispers that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Shadows flickered, forming fleeting images of twisted trees and lost children, their faces blank, eyes wide with an emptiness that pierced the soul. Tommy's voice called to them again, a mournful plea rising from the depths. "Help me, please." It echoed like a distant bell, leading them deeper into the abyss. "Tommy!" the children shouted in unison. But the fog swallowed their cries like it had done to him. Desperation clawed at Sarah. She squeezed Lucas's hand tighter. "We need to make a plan. We can't just run in blind." "Right," Lucas gasped, glancing at the creeping shadow that churned around them. "Maybe we can find something in the old stories? Something about the witch?" A bold older sister, Cassie, who had always been a warrior at heart, spoke up. "There's a legend the witch can hold on to her victims by means of a token. If we find it, maybe we can break the bond. We can get Tommy back." The realization hit. "The toy. The one we saw hanging from the branch," Sarah exclaimed, memory flooding back. "It's connected to him." As the words slipped from her lips, a gust of wind whirled around them, carrying the faint wails of children lost to time and fear. Faces echoed in the mist, twisted and sorrowful. Sarah's stomach tightened as she felt the weight of their collective cries. "We have to hurry before it's too late." But the fog thickened, choking off her words, and strange shapes began to twist within it, faces, hands, reaching out as if they wanted to pull them in. The feelings of dread escalated. Shadows flickering through the night like fireflies turned malevolent. "Stay close," Lucas commanded, his voice steady as he pointed towards a solitary shape looming just ahead. "It's the edge of the garden. The tree, the branch." As they darted forward through the haze, the world narrowed, and there stood the tree, a gnarled sentinel in an ocean of despair. Hanging from a branch at eye level was the toy, swaying eerily. Sarah felt a rush of twisted hope and fear, knowing they were in a race against time and the witch's power. But just as they reached out for it, a laugh cold and cruel drifted through the air. "You think you can save him?" The children froze, hearts sinking as the laughter echoed, wrapping around them like icy chains. "Step back," Cassie whispered, the fear evident in her eyes. "It's her. And she wants us too." As the shadows thickened, blocking the light of the moon, a haunting realization washed over them. To free Tommy, they might have to face the witch herself. Would they dare confront the darkness in hopes of saving their friend? Or would they vanish into the fog, lost to the ages, just like so many others? With a mix of terror and determination, they prepared to confront whatever darkness awaited them. But as they stepped forward, an outstretched hand shot from the depths, one they never expected to see who reached for them, and could it be Tommy's friend or something far more twisted? The fog deepened, daring them to discover the truth hidden within. A pale hand emerged from the swirling mist, trembling but familiar. Sarah squinted, her heart racing. "Tommy," she whispered, both hopeful and terrified. The hand stretched further, beckoning them closer, desperate yet forlorn. "Don't. It could be a trick." Cassie shot back, her voice low and urgent. The shadows around them twisted, flickering like flames in a strong wind. The cold laughter echoed once more, wrapping around them like a serpent. "Too late for that," a voice hissed, slithering through the fog. "Come closer, children. I've been waiting for you. How brave of you to wander into my realm so foolish. Who are you?" Lucas stepped forward, the determination in his voice shaking as fear clawed at his throat. "Your worst nightmare," the voice cackled, and the mist parted slightly, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glimmering like coals in a dying fire. The apparition flicked her wrist, and shadows twisted into shapes. Pale children with hollow expressions swarmed around them. "Look at their faces," Sarah exclaimed, her breath hitching in her throat. The shadows clawed at the air, empty hands reaching for her, searching for something lost. Each face bore the marks of despair, as if life itself had been drained away. "We're not like them," she shouted defiantly. "Oh, but you will be," the witch replied, a smile curling on her lips, twisted like a serpent's coil. "All it takes is a bit of despair and a sweet, sweet token." She gestured to the toy swaying just beyond them, mocking the children with its innocence. "We just need to get Tommy back," Sarah shouted, fury and desperation blending within her. "You can't have him." "Can't I?" The witch's laughter echoed, dipping into delight. "Do you think you hold the strength of hope? How quaint your little hearts are, delicacies." The shadows thickened, drawing closer, seeking to envelope them. Each step felt like pushing through water, slowing them down as shadows wrapped around their legs. Sarah recalled the whispers of the wind, the cries of the lost children. They had to break the binding or they'd become just like them. Panic rose in her chest. "Grab the toy. We can't let her take it," she cried, eyes fixed on the object. Together, they surged forward only to be met by the witch's wrath. She raised her hands, darkness swirling like a storm. "Foolish children," she shouted, sending shadows crashing towards them, scattering the group. In an instant, they were lost, disoriented by the swirling mist and suffocating darkness. Sarah felt Lucas slip away, his hand pulling from hers as he screamed her name. "Lucas," she called, fear ripping through her. "Where are you?" "Over here," he yelled, but the shadows choked his voice. Panic knotted in her stomach as she turned in circles, trying to find him, trying to find any of them. A chilling silence fell, broken only by the distant echoes of children's wails. She staggered deeper into the swirling abyss, her heart pounding in her ears. All hope felt like a distant memory, threatened by the witch's unyielding pull. But she remembered Tommy. There has to be a way, she urged herself, her voice breaking through the darkness. We can win. But then she heard it. A faint whisper. A voice she recognized among all the horrors. Sarah. Help me, Tommy. The darkness seemed to shudder at her call, and for a fleeting moment, she felt a glimmer of hope reignite. But just then, a shadowy form lunged at her from the mist, its eyes burning with envy. The very air thickened as dread surrounded her. Foolish girl, you think you can save him? The witch's voice echoed, cutting through the fog like a knife. Desperation clawed at Sarah's mind as she faced the darkness. Could she do it? Could she save Tommy and the others trapped in this nightmare? Would she have the strength to fight back? And just as she steeled herself for confrontation, the shadows shifted, swirling violently, revealing a shimmering dagger embedded in the earth, the only thing that might pierce the witch's power. Would they uncover the strength to face the witch, or would they too fall victim to her terrifying magic and join the ranks of the damned? The truth spun around her like the fog itself, hiding dangers yet unseen. With a deep breath, Sarah made her choice. The dagger gleamed unnaturally in the midst of the swirling shadows, pulsating as if alive. Sarah's heart raced, a wild mix of fear and determination coursed through her veins. She needed that dagger. Not just for Tommy, but for all the children trapped in this nightmare. Are you going to just stand there? The witch's voice slashed at her resolve, brittle like glass. You think that toy will save you? It will be your undoing. No, Sarah shouted back, clutching her resolve like a lifeline. She turned and plunged into the darkness, forcing her way towards the dagger. The shadows writhed around her, clawing at her legs, as if trying to pull her down into the depths of despair. Stop her! The witch screamed, her voice thick with rage, echoing off the oppressive fog. With every step, the air grew heavier, laden with a coldness that seemed to seep into her bones. But Sarah pressed on, her resolve hardening. She could barely see, but she could feel a vibrating energy emanating from the dagger, calling to her as if it were aware of her presence. Sarah! A voice cut through the swirling mist. Lucas. But it sounded distant, muffled. Panic surged inside her. Sarah, where are you? I'm coming, she shouted, barely loud enough over the echoing chaos around her. She could hear faint cries, lost souls trapped in the witch's grasp. A sick feeling twisted in her stomach. Were the cries real? Were they the other children? Foolish little girl. The witch screeched, laughter erupting like thunder. Time is running out. The shadows twisted harder, agonizingly slow. But Sarah felt the dagger's energy intensify. It was the only chance. The opalescent hilt radiated a warmth that stood in stark contrast to the darkness surrounding her. She reached out, fingertips brushing across the cool metal, and a bone-chilling scream erupted, causing Sarah to jerk back, heart racing wildly. Don't touch it. Cassie's voice broke through the fog, frantic and desperate. It's a trap. But the witch's laughter cascaded around her again, taunting. Yes, yes. Listen to her. The more you linger, the deeper you fall. No, Sarah shouted, shaking off Cassie's warning. I won't let you take Tommy. Mustering every ounce of courage, she lunged forward, grasping the dagger firmly. With the blade in hand, a rush of strength surged through her, pushing back the shadows momentarily, illuminating the deep black around her in a pale glow. The whispers of the trapped children became clearer now, their cries morphing into a chorus of hope woven into the horror. Tommy! She cried aloud, the dagger pulsing with energy that felt warm against her fingers. She could feel his presence, closer now, a light in the deepest part of the darkness. Give it to me, child. The witch howled furiously, shadows swirling ever faster, coiling tight around Sarah's ankles like serpents, desperately trying to pull her under. You have no power here. Yes, I do. Sarah shouted defiantly. With a primal scream, she thrust the dagger into the air, a beacon that sliced through the stifling darkness. An explosion of light erupted, forcing back the shadows, forcing clarity into the mist. But as the shadows receded, the room filled with a blinding light. In the light's center, a figure emerged, familiar yet changed. Tommy stepped forward, pale and wide-eyed, trapped behind an ethereal barrier that howled with the witch's fury. Sarah, help me, he pleaded, his voice echoing in her mind, igniting the fire in her heart. "Hold on," she cried, the dagger vibrating in her grip as she took a step toward him. But the witch wasn't finished. "You think you can save him? You think this little trinket can defy my will?" The temperature dropped sharply, and with a wave of her hand, the darkness washed back in, fierce and suffocating. "Fight it, Sarah. You have the power." Lucas's voice squeaked from the shadows, conjuring a flicker of hope within her. Tommy's eyes, those familiar wide blue eyes, seemed to shimmer, reflecting the light of the dagger. Would she have the strength to break the witch's grip? Would this moment decide all their fates? As the shadows closed in once more, Sarah braced herself, her heart pounding in rhythm with the dagger's glow. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, and she was determined to turn the tide. "Leave us alone," she yelled, ready to challenge the witch. But then, a sudden rush of wind scattered the mist, and in the chaos, Sarah realized the dagger was more than just a weapon. It held the essence of their lost hopes, swirling and waiting to be awakened. Could she harness that power and bring back not only Tommy but all those lost children? The witch screamed in rage, the turbulence around them growing fierce. "Find strength and hope," Sarah shouted, wrapping her fingers around the hilt tightly. Would this light be enough to cut through despair? Would Sarah's courage be enough to face the ultimate darkness? The breath of the tempest surrounded them as the dagger glowed even brighter. And then with a blinding flash, darkness. What had they unleashed? What was waiting to be uncovered? In the suffocating void, Sarah felt the dagger slip from her grip. The light extinguished in an instant, leaving only a haunting silence that consumed her. Panic clawed at her throat as she flailed in the darkness, reaching desperately for anything. For Tommy, her brother, lost amidst the chaos. Out of the abyss a faint whisper echoed, curling around her like fog. "Sarah, don't let go." It was Tommy's voice, soft yet laced with urgency, pulling her toward something deeper, something she feared to confront. "Tommy," she called into the void, her voice trembling. Suddenly the shadows thickened, swirling wildly like a ravenous beast. Black tendrils snaked around her, cold and crushing. The weight of despair pressed down hard, but embedded deep inside her was still that flicker of hope, a tale written on the dagger's blade. Before she could gather her thoughts, the witch's chilling laughter shattered the silence. "You thought you could command powers beyond you, little girl? You're nothing but a moth drawn to the flame." The malicious voice sent shivers coursing through her spine. "What would you know of courage?" "I know," Sarah shouted back, her voice steadier as the shadows writhed around her. "I know I can't let you take him." The darkness spiraled, closing in tighter. With a primal scream, Sarah plunged her hands through the umbra, as if reaching for Tommy's essence. "Tommy, I'm here." Light flickered back into existence, a tendril of illumination extending from where the dagger had fallen, illuminating the space with a soft glow. The mist hesitated as if afraid of this flicker amidst the wild chaos. Out of the blinding light, Tommy's figure appeared again, eyes filled with fear and shimmering with unshed tears. "Sarah, please. Don't let her win." Determined, Sarah began to pull herself forward. She could feel the cold fingers of darkness curling tighter, but the light was alive now, vibrating with every ounce of warmth from the dagger. Grasping the shimmering hilt with both hands again, she felt that pulse drive her resolve. "All the ones you've taken," she cried out, channeling the force of lost souls into her own. "I will not let this stand." The dagger surged with energy, illuminating the darkness like a beacon. Each heartbeat thrummed louder, resonating like thunder through the oppressive mist. Shadows screamed in fury, twisting and writhing, mired in a panic they had never known. "Enough!" The witch's furious shout echoed like a clap of thunder, flinging her hands toward Sarah. A wave of malevolent energy whipped through the air, striking her like a steel blade. It knocked Sarah off her feet, sending her crashing onto the cold ground. The dagger slid from her fingers and she gasped, fear closing around her heart. She forced her trembling limbs to move, dragging herself towards Tommy's anguished gaze. The shadows swirled around him, thick and hungry. In a single heartbeat, Sarah understood. The dagger was not just a weapon. It was a lifeline, a conduit connecting all the lost spirits trapped in the witch's grasp. With every ounce of strength, she fought to rise again against the unrelenting force. "Gather your strength," Lucas shouted from the dark edges, his voice weaving through the turbulence. Tommy needs you now. Clenching her teeth, Sarah closed her eyes against the shadows. She could feel the dagger's energy beckoning her, urging her to rise. In that moment of clarity, she realized the truth. This was not just about defeating the witch, but reclaiming every child's hope. Breathing deep, she called forth every ounce of courage, all the love she felt for Tommy and the others. She would not back down. She would face the witch and claim not only the dagger's power but the freedom of every trapped child. As she rose, echoes of hope resonated inside her, their voices merging into a hopeful chorus. Together, she yelled, thrusting her arm forward, pulling the dagger from the ground as the light surged back in a brilliant wave, ready to confront the darkness head-on. But as the shadows began to scatter, a sudden chill swept through the room. Behind the witch, a new figure emerged, cloaked in darkness, an unholy guardian poised to strike. What was this new terror? Would Sarah's light be enough against the witch's ultimate weapon? Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as the figure behind the witch loomed closer, its silhouette twisting and curling like smoke. The air thickened with dread, swirling shadows feeding off her fear. She swallowed hard, trying to steady the adrenaline coursing through her veins. What is that? Tommy's voice cracked, eyes wide with terror. I don't know, Sarah shouted back, desperate to keep her fear from showing. The ghostly being was draped in layers of obscuring darkness, limbs elongated, fingers clawed and reaching, as if begging for life. The witch's smile widened, her eyes glinting with wicked light. Meet my sentinel. It guards the souls you foolishly wish to free. The sentinel twisted its form, dipping and turning, hungry for light. Sarah noticed how the shadows it cast seemed to consume everything around it, sucking the warmth from the very air. Get away from him, Sarah cried, raising the dagger high once more, summoning the light swirling at her fingertips. But as the dagger shone, the sentinel recoiled, hissing softly, revealing rows of glistening teeth. Your bravery is admirable but futile, the witch sneered, flicking her wrist like commanding a servant. The sentinel lunged, diving toward Tommy, who stood defenseless in the thick mist. No, Sarah screamed, charging forward. Just as the sentinel was about to reach Tommy, Sarah hurled the dagger forward, letting the light explode in a brilliant cascade, colliding with the dark figure. A shockwave pulsed through the air. The sentinel howled, a sound twisted with anguish as it met light for the first time. But the witch laughed with cruel delight. You really think you can defeat it with mere hope? The light glimmered, shimmering in response to Sarah's panic. Through the haze, she could see Tommy's face, an expression of shared fear and determination. She could not lose him. Focusing all her energy, Sarah stretched out her hands toward Tommy, calling on the power within her. Remember them, she urged, forcing her voice through the din of chaos. All the ones who came before us, all the lost children. At her words, the light from the dagger brightened, expanding and wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. Flickers of otherworldly figures began swirling within it, children lost over the years, their faces etched with the hunger for freedom, their voices echoing in a chorus of unity. Together, they cried, "We are not forgotten." The dagger glowed violently, illuminating the shadows that clung to them. With that surge of energy, the sentinel thrashed, trapped within the radiant light. The witch's smirk faltered, the glee in her eyes dimming with each flicker of empowerment coursing through Sarah. You think you can turn my own magic against me? She spat, fury flashing across her features. This is but a dream. Dream or not, Sarah shouted, pouring every ounce of her heart into the blade. We will rise. In that moment, a rift appeared at the edges of the room, a fracture within the darkness itself, where light began to spill through. It siphoned off shadows like a siphon to a drain, pulling them apart. But just as Sarah felt the tide turning, the witch raised her hands once more, summoning a storm of darkness. You may have found light, but this is my realm. You will obey. The room erupted in swirling chaos. Just as the sentinel writhed against the light, the witch formed a pulsating orb of black energy, launching it directly at them. Time seemed to slow. Sarah! Tommy screamed, frozen in fear. With a scream of her own, Sarah lunged forward, grappling the dagger tight, her mind racing. Could she block the witch's rage? Could hope truly conquer despair? The energy collided. Light met dark, cascading in an electric pulse that lit the entire void around them. In that fraught second, the room held its breath. What would remain when the tempests calmed? Would they find freedom or be lost forever in the abyss? The answer lurked in the flames of that swirling maelstrom. Whichever way the battle swayed, nothing would ever be the same again. The stakes rose. What awaited them on the other side of the confrontation? The clash echoed like thunder, the very fabric of reality straining against the forces colliding before them. Sarah felt her heart pound in her ears, the strobe of light overwhelming everything. The vibrant explosion enveloped the room, illuminating every corner as the darkness tried to engulf it. She steadied her grip on the dagger. That light wasn't just a weapon, it was a lifeline. "Hold on, Tommy," she shouted, her voice barely cutting through the bedlam. Tommy's eyes flickered from the vibrant glow to the ominous darkness, fear etched deep into his face. He took a few faltering steps back, eyes wide as the tempest pressed forward. "What are we going to do? It's too strong." Before Sarah could respond, the witch let out a shrieking laugh, reverberating through the chaos. "You think this is a game? My sentinel is but a fragment of my power. You'll see even this feeble light will extinguish." With a swish of her hand, she unleashed the orb of black energy again. This time larger, swirling with malevolence. It surged toward them like a beast unleashed from its cage, howling with despair. "Now!" Sarah screamed, channeling all her strength, all her memories of those lost kids, those silenced souls. The light from the dagger pulsed vividly, welcoming the dark wave as it approached. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the air, light and dark warring violently in a grand visual cacophony. As the black orb rushed towards them, Sarah's focus sharpened like never before. It felt like every grain of her being ignited with purpose. In that moment the world split. Where the light broke through, fractures erupted, revealing glimpses of a different realm. A world caught between the dead and the living, where children's laughter echoed, muffled by the weight of despair. "Help them!" Sarah cried, her voice strained against the overwhelming force. The dagger surged beneath her grasp. More alive than ever, it was like it recognized the urgency. She knew it held countless souls trapped in darkness. The very essence of freedom radiated from her, filling the room with hope. "Together!" she yelled, reaching for Tommy, pulling him closer. "We have to push back. We're stronger together." They steadied themselves, shoulder to shoulder. The dagger in Sarah's hand felt like a heartbeat, a connection to something much larger than themselves. In one final act of desperation, Sarah thrust the dagger forward, aiming at the dark mass. The light erupted in an all-consuming blaze that shattered the shadows around them. The space trembled violently, shattering the floor beneath them like glass. Rifts tore open, momentarily revealing echoes of children's faces, wide-eyed and full of dreams they'd been robbed of. They gasped and reached out to Sarah and Tommy, a chorus of silent pleas for salvation. "No!" the witch screamed, grasping futilely at her fading power. The sentinel, caught in the brilliance, hissed, its form dissolving under the might of the growing light. But even as the witch recoiled, something twisted deep within Sarah. A chilling realization crept in. What if freeing them comes at a cost? The dagger's glow intensified, consuming all the shadows, but not without a price. Sarah felt something pull at her insides, a dark tendril resting from within. Was this victory or impending doom? As the blinding light encased them, something deep in the abyss was awakening. The witch's laughter morphed from sinister glee to something more sinister, a cry of helpless fury. "Just wait, you think this battle is over? I will see you again." The ground shook. The fabric of reality warped, stretching around them. In a blinding flash, everything vanished. Sarah and Tommy were plunged into darkness, a new realm, disoriented and terrified. As their senses adjusted, they realized they weren't alone anymore. Strange figures moved in the murky shadows, eyes glinting with mischief and madness, faces twisted in unimaginable forms. The air thickened with tension and anticipation. Where had they landed? What awaited them in this new abyss? A whisper echoed through the darkness, chilling to the bone. "Welcome to our world." A new path had opened, but at what cost? What new horrors awaited them in the witch's domain? Darkness wrapped around Sarah and Tommy like a suffocating shroud, the shadows dancing at the corners of their vision. Tommy's breath came in sharp gasps, and Sarah could see his fear reflected in the depth of his wide, trembling eyes. "What are those things?" he whispered, his voice breaking like thin glass. I don't know, Sarah replied, her own heart racing. The eerie shapes lurking in the darkness shifted closer, undulating like smoke, their eyes shimmering like stars that had fallen too close to earth. A cold metallic scent filled the air, sending chills down Sarah's spine. Stay close, she urged, gripping Tommy's arm. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a small child, no more than 8 or 9, with hair tangled like brambles and eyes that flickered with a light deeper than the night around them. Help us, the child rasped, their voice barely above a whisper, as they extended a grubby hand toward them. Are you trapped here? Sarah felt a pang of empathy as she crouched to meet the child's gaze. We all are, the child said, shivering. The witch? She keeps us. We need to get out. Tommy peered cautiously at the other shadowy figures. But how? There are so many. The child looked down, sorrow etched into their delicate features. You came from the light. But the light must fight the darkness, or else more will join us. A haunting realization settled in Sarah's chest. Every soul she traps seeks to break free. Each scream we hear in the dark feeds her power. The child cried, their eyes wide with desperation. You have to stop her. Sarah felt the weight of their grim words. The world she had fought so hard to save had led her here, where shadows could swallow entire lives. We will, she promised, her voice steady. But we need to know how. As if anticipating her need, the flickering child gestured for them to follow. They moved cautiously, the shadows parting as they stepped through. Each step felt like a journey through treacle, thick and slow. But Sarah clung to the child, their fragile warmth grounding her resolve. They arrived at a clearing bathed in a dim phosphorescent light. There, twisted trees loomed, their gnarled branches resembling skeletal hands reaching for salvation. In the center stood a small altar, covered in strange symbols and mementos, a child's shoe, a frayed doll, bits of faded clothing. Here, the child said, their finger pointing to a pulsing crystal embedded in the altar. This is the heart of the witch's dark magic. Destroy it and you can free us. Tommy stepped closer, his expression torn with uncertainty. But what if it doesn't work? What if we make it worse? A chill swept through the air. The child's eyes widened. If you don't try, she'll take more. You must act before she comes back. The ground trembled slightly beneath them, a warning from the unseen depths. Sarah felt the dagger thrum in her hand, its energy pulling her toward the altar. It was calling to her, urging her to act, to do what she feared, but she also remembered the witch's words. What if freeing these souls meant sacrificing her own? Tommy's voice trembled. Not just from fear but from an unspoken understanding of the stakes they faced. Together, Tommy. We can do this. But the moment we act, yeah, I know. We commit. His eyes were bloodshot, but there was fire behind them. Without another word, Sarah lunged forward, the dagger glistening with resolve. She raised it high, aimed at the crystal. But in that instant, a deafening roar echoed from the depths of the forest, shaking the very earth beneath their feet. Shadows soared like thunder, and from them, a figure emerged, the witch herself, rage etching her features. No, you will not take this power from me. The ground quaked, panic coursing through Sarah's veins. They had awakened a storm. And now they had no choice but to face the consequences. Would they free the trapped souls, or become just another part of the witch's dark legacy? The air was electric with fear, but also with the pulsing hope of liberation. What now? Tommy shouted over the tempest growing. Now Sarah steeled. Herself we fight. With every ounce of strength, she plunged the dagger toward the crystal, ready to change everything. But would it be enough to combat the raging darkness? Would they survive the witch's wrath? Or was this merely the beginning of their torment? As Sarah plunged the dagger towards the pulsating heart of the witch's dark magic, a surge of power coursed through her, igniting every fiber of her being. The dagger met the crystal with a shattering force, bright light bursting forth like the dawn after a long bitter night. Shadows fluttered and quivered in retreat, as if they recognized the end of their reign of terror. That a wail escaped the witch's lips, a sound mingled with fury and despair. You think you can defeat me? She screeched, her silhouette blurring in the blinding light. Tendrils of darkness reached toward Sarah and Tommy, but the dagger's radiance pushed back the shadows like an invisible barrier, protecting the children beneath its glow. Stand together, Sarah shouted, her voice firm and unwavering. This is our moment. She gripped Tommy's hand, feeling the warmth of his courage tethering her to the very essence of hope itself. As the dagger crumbled the crystal, the world shook violently around them, the altar erupting in a shower of sparks. It felt like the energy of 1,000 trapped souls was being released at once. The figures of lost children emerged from the shadows, faces blooming into clarity, eyes filled with gratitude. "You found us," they whispered like a breeze through the trees, hands reaching out to touch the light. The witch stumbled backward, her face a twisted mask of disbelief and rage. "No," she howled, the darkness around her thrumming with malevolence. "You will pay for this. You will all become my power." But the light expanded, each pulse of illumination breaking apart the chains of despair that had bound the lost souls. They surged forward, merging into the light, their laughter mingling with the energy of the dagger, forming a symphony of liberation that filled the air like music. The witch's screams rang hollow, reverberating through the clearing as her form began to fade. The shadows crackled around her, distorting as if desperate to cling to their master. "You may have won this battle, but I will return," she shrieked. "There are always more children and I will always be waiting." In an instant she dissolved into a cloud of darkness, evaporating into the ether like a mirage. The moment stretched and snapped like a fragile thread, the ominous weight that had loomed over Hollow Creek for so long now dissipating. The air felt lighter, tinged with the warmth of freedom, as the last remnants of darkness melted away. How did we do it?" Tommy stammered, eyes wide in shock and awe. His breath matched her own as they basked in the glow surrounding them. Sarah looked around, no longer seeing the shadows of fear but a field of light filled with hopeful faces, cheering for their salvation. "We did it together," she whispered, holding the dagger high, feeling the pulse of friendship and love supporting her strength. The children they had freed began to fade into the winds, their victory echoing through each corner of Hollow Creek, crafting a new legacy of bravery. They turned to look back at Sarah and Tommy, smiles resonating with love. "Thank you," they called out in unison before disappearing like fireflies into the embracing night. As the last spark vanished, Sarah and Tommy found themselves once more standing at the altar, but it felt like the beginning instead of the end. The air hummed with a different energy now, a promise of hope renewed and the waking dawn. The town of Hollow Creek brightened from its deep slumber. Birds sang jubilantly, sunlight poured over the old stone mansion, and life began to hum once again. Families emerged from their homes, confusion etched on their faces as they cautiously stepped into a world no longer marred by shadows. Sarah and Tommy exchanged one last look, an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of courage and confronted darkness. "We should always remember what we fought for," Tommy said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "Always," Sarah replied, a smile breaking across her face, warmth filling her heart. "And we'll keep everyone safe." They turned to walk back into town together, the light of hope now infused in their every step. No longer would the witch haunt Hollow Creek, as they had unshackled the past and stepped boldly into a future where tales of bravery would be told long into the generations. And in the echoes of the wind, the whispers of lost children merged with the triumph of young heroes, marking a story that would be cherished and never forgotten. There it was, a tale of fear, heart, and unity that led to the dawn of a bright new chapter in Hollow Creek. Now, if you've enjoyed this wild, emotional ride, make sure you subscribe immediately, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will send chills down your spine. Smash that like button now to help us feed the algorithm. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic conclusion. This is your moment to show your support.